Hey everybody, I am your host, Brendan. Welcome to another episode of SwingBadder.
Where paying people a lot of money does not guarantee good results, but it is pretty funny.
We put a spotlight on the largest contracts and see how they perform.
Your team signs the player that's just going to make next season the best ever. They gave him a lot of money, and then he's famous for striking out with a man on third and not bringing a run in. You know who we're talking about.
That's SwingBadder. Do you ever wonder why GMs aren't tested for drugs? Especially before they sign a big contract. This is the show that proves they should be. I want to know what spice they've been on signing some of these.
Before we get into it, I want you to go down below, like and subscribe, and leave a comment with maybe 2 or 3 players whose contracts you really want us to dig into and find out more about. And then check back later. We might have you covered.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of SwingBadder. I am your host, Brendan. I am joined at the dinner table by my brother Todd and my father. We are very happy to have you. We're excited about this episode of SwingBadder where we get to look at contracts in baseball. Why do we love contracts in baseball? Guaranteed money, which is fantastic for us, the fans, because we get to evaluate them. Dad, welcome to the show. What 3 names do you have for us to choose from for these contracts?
I have 3 SwingBadder contracts to put on the table for us to consider. The first is a pitcher named Ubaldo Jimenez. The second is an outfielder named Carl Crawford. And the third is a third baseman, Pablo Sandoval.
I love Pablo. Pablo's the best.
Teddy bear, the giant panda.
Todd, it's your pick, though. I can't pick. I can pick Pablo all day.
It's my pick.
Your pick.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. You'll never catch Carl Crawford when he runs from first to second. So we're going to go with him.
Carl Crawford.
Let's take the speedy Carl. Man, I loved him in fantasy baseball. You get the stolen bases. You get, he's in his prime. You're looking at about 15 to 20 home runs. It's some good stuff. Some good stuff.
So at the age of 21, Carl Crawford shows up to play for the Tampa Rays, and he was breathtaking. He just won everyone's heart, the 312 people who go to Tampa Bay games, but also the people who followed baseball. Man, the guy could run. He was a great fielder because of his speed, stole a lot of bases, and his lowest batting average was his first year when he batted .281. It went to .296, and then pretty much he was a 300 hitter after that. He coupled that with unbelievable stolen base numbers. One year he stole 59, 55. He averaged 47 stolen bases a year with Tampa, and he batted over 300 every year but one. He did get a 1-year contract for $10 million in 2010, allowing him to become a free agent when he finally got the big contract that everyone knew he deserved.
And that's why Carl Crawford is one of our options. He sounded, again, when you look at the numbers previous contract and what you just stated, it's fantastic. This guy is a lock for the future.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the stats, this guy's a triple threat all around, and he was great on defense too. So it wasn't just an offensive guy, but he was great on defense. And the idea that you're getting this guy at 28 years old, you got to keep in mind, too, this was an era we were coming fresh off of the idea that a guy like Barry Bonds could have a WAR of 986 at the age of 44 years old or something like that. This is still fresh in everybody's mind. I don't think he was that far off where, people are looking at this guy as such a huge threat. So there were 2 teams that were bidding for Carl Crawford in early December of 2010 in order to sign this contract. Those 2 teams were California Angels and the Boston Red Sox.
Now, I want to take a note.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. And I want to take a note right there. The one team not in the running is the team that had him for the whole time of his career. Because once Tampa sees your price went too high, they're out.
I think Tampa knew after that 1-year contract for $10 million, they were going to get the best of Carl Crawford because he's playing for big money. Because they knew they were going to lose him to a big money team. The only question was, would he be willing to go to the Yankees? Remember that, because that's going to come in just a minute. So the Angels came in with a bid, and I just want to get this right, for 6 years and $108 million. The agent came back and said, listen, the only way we get this done is 7 years, $142 million. So he goes and meets with a team, with the Angels and another club. The Angels didn't know who else was on the other side of the table. They just knew that another team was matching it. And so Carl Crawford's agent goes to him and he says, I have two teams, 7 years, $142 million. The first team is the Angels and the second team is the Boston Red Sox. Crawford chose the Red Sox. Angels never had a chance, even though they matched the Boston Red Sox offer. Now, there's some really interesting clauses in this contract. Number one, they could trade him, but he could block the deal to two clubs specifically. Another one, he would get the standard bonuses, $50,000 for an all-star bonus, $75,000 for an ALCS MVP. He got a signing bonus of $6 million. But if he was traded, this is the best part. If Carl Crawford was traded, the team he went to could not trade him to the Yankees. That was written into the contract for Carl Crawford. So Boston is going out there, and there's this GM at the time who everybody loves by the name of Theo Epstein signing this deal, and they're leveraging $142 million, which at the time is a massive amount of money. They are leveraging their future, $20 million a year, that this guy's going to be the future for Boston. He's going to get it done. They are bringing in the next Say Hey Kid. They're bringing in the next Willie Mays. They're bringing in the next. This guy's going to show everybody how this thing is done. He's got speed, stealing 50 bases a year. Fantastic. He's going to make the entire outfield of the Red Sox better. What a great part of our lineup. And then the 2011 season happens. Right, Dad?
It sure did. It's like all of a sudden, Carl Crawford forgot how to play baseball. He batted only .255, and he hit like 11 home runs.
Ooh.
And he only stole a few bases.
Ooh.
It was a disaster. Only magnified in the second year when he got hurt and only played in 31 games. So for the first 2 years out of the box, does anybody know what the fans in Boston are like? They're not really particularly forgiving of somebody who made what at that time was unbelievable money coming in and being a part-time guy who can't bat over .255. So things were icy cold in Boston.
And I get the sense that like after you sign that free agency deal for the first year, you get a little bit of the jitters and that type of thing. But he just couldn't make it happen. And they're paying him $20 million a year. In 2011, $20 million a year is actually real money.
So the Angels are the winner right now. The Angels
look like geniuses, because I'm going to give you this. If the Angels had signed 7 years, $142 million, do you think they would have been able to land Shohei Ohtani a couple of years later?
I mean,
changes things.
The Angels are kind of a train wreck, so I just think they compounded by signing more people. So I don't think it would deter them from being a train wreck. In fact, they probably tried to at some point call up Boston and try to get them back. I mean, the Angels are kind of a barn fire when it comes to their moves.
Well, remember, he could block a trade to only two clubs, and he really did kind of want to go to the West Coast. So, Dad, what happened?
Well, after 2 years, the Red Sox unloaded him and his contract. It was a complicated deal. I don't know all the numbers, but basically the Dodgers sent some big contracts to the Red Sox, Adrian Gonzalez and things like that, and they got back Crawford. And in the first 2 years, Crawford resurrected slightly. There weren't Tampa Bay numbers, but they weren't that disastrous. I think he batted like in the 280s or something. Stolen bases were way down. He was stealing 50 a year in Tampa. He was stealing like 15 to 17 with the Dodgers. But he was playing a decent left field. He was nowhere near the guy he was at Tampa Bay, but he wasn't the disaster he was in Boston for 2 years. But then the total wheels came off.
He still wasn't playing a lot of games. He only played 116 and then I think like 103 games.
Right. Like
in his two best years with the Dodgers. And by the way, Boston still retained a portion of his salary. That it wasn't a lot. It was like $850,000, but they still were paying him through 2017.
And even
$850,000 a year.
So with those numbers, with the Dodgers, he's playing 2 games out of 3. Every third day he's taken off. I know it didn't work, but when you look at the end of the year, he's playing about 2/3 of the year.
But here's the
For $20 million a year.
Here's the big difference with the Dodgers and the Boston Red Sox. The Boston Red Sox are on you the whole time about whether you're playing good or not. The Dodgers, there's so many other things to look at if your team's not doing well. And if you're Carl Crawford, it's kind of like there's so many pretty women in LA. They all blend in.
Who's fighting who in the stands?
Carl Crawford at this point is just one of the pretty contracts on that field. If he plays, great. If he doesn't, we understand. We understand. So the Dodgers are more of a forgiving media. They're more of a forgiving people. They're more accepting. Boston, on the other hand, probably wanted to knife him.
The worst part about that, Boston got the short end of the stick, right? Yeah, they ended up eating dead money to the tune of like $43 million over the course of 2 years. It was just considered dead money.
After 2 years with the Dodgers, though, Carl Crawford became an expert in croquet or something because he stopped playing any kind of good baseball forever. He was a non-factor, so much so that at the end, the Dodgers they paid him $35 million to go away. Go to the movies, son. But
not the Yankees.
He didn't go anywhere. I mean, he just went away with $35 million from the Dodgers at the end of the contract. And it's really hard to understand where all this talent went. There was no perceived injury that they talked about that knocked him out. It was just like, I got money, now I'm going to go do what I always want to do, fish or whatever it was.
Well, if he really hated the Yankees so much, why didn't he just sign with them? He would have played terrible for the Yankees and really sunk their ship. But at the end of the day, when it comes to SwingBadder and bad contracts, Carl Crawford does eat some cake, if you know what I mean. He didn't stay trim and fit through those years. And a 7-year deal in that era, which isn't that far, 2010,
right,
2009, 2010, 2011. In retrospect to these 10-year deals all the players are getting today, that's a 7-year deal. He didn't even manage 4 years.
Carl Crawford averaged 47 stolen bases a year with Tampa Bay. Once he signed a contract with Boston until the end of his career, he stole 71 total bases over all those years. He was averaging 47 a year. He batted 300 one time, and remember he was hitting about 17, 18 home runs a year? Once he signed a contract, he hit 32 home runs for the rest of his career. It was just like completely fell off the cliff. He didn't resemble the player at all. I have a visual in my brain. There was a great night in baseball where the Red Sox had a chance to eliminate. They had an easy game to win. Maybe it was against Baltimore or something like that. And they lost with a little blooping drive to left field that Carl Crawford couldn't catch. He couldn't get to the ball. It's really like, why didn't he catch that ball? It's a great symbol. And this was when he was with Boston before he went to the Dodgers. It completely not understandable, but made a lot of money for next to nothing.
You know, in 2013, when he was with the Dodgers, he started to get nerve irritation in his left arm. And so that really kind of started to eat into things like injury-wise. But I think the thing that really got into his career was he was in LA and he said, I'm going to get into the music business.
Ah, there we go.
and this is where we run into some problems. Anytime an athlete sits there and goes, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get into the music business. You got problems. You got big, big problems.
There are a few that have been successful, but in SwingBadder, when we look at contracts and you didn't perform, we take out that microscope and look at what you did on the free time that you had. Not that you shouldn't have free time, and not that you shouldn't do cool things, but when you're getting paid a lot of money to do the one thing you're getting paid a lot of money for, maybe stick to being good at that. So in closing, when you tuck your kids in at night, you can read them the story of Carl Crawford, a man who lived the American dream. Because I dare you, anybody who can take their talent, turn it into $142 million, and then say, I'm taking these talents and keeping them for myself, and you can't do anything about it, baseball, has my admiration. I am your host, Brendan. That is Todd. That is Dad. And we're at the family dinner table. Thanks so much for joining us. See you next time.
Good night.